Well, good evening and welcome everybody to the Full Sail University online classes. My name is Steve Kane, and once again, I'm here with you with the Audio Workstations class, and it is our Week 3 Thursday lecture. This is a special Thursday. It is June the 14th, and that is Flag Day here for us. So happy Flag Day to everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope you're just blowing in the breeze. Yay, yay, yay. How many people knew that? How many people knew that it was Flag Day? A lot of times now that we've got electronics that kind of reminds us, and I have to admit that was one of the reasons that I remembered that it was Flag Day. But as always, like I promise you, and this is our last Thursday, actually, that we're going to do a Pro Tools assignment together. So up under Week 3, when you open that up, please go down to your Pro Tools assignment. Now, remember our expectations. I do not want you to follow along with me tonight. I want you to just watch as we go along and make sure that everything makes sense. I do not expect you to fully understand it. I expect it to make sense. So if it is not making sense as we are doing it, then we are going to, you're going to ask some questions when we pause for the cause. And those of you that are listening in archive world, if you're trying it a second and third time, you're going to reach out to your instructor with questions and getting on down with that. So with your Pro Tools assignment, of course, that's going to come with the guidelines and the PDF. So I already popped those up. And I downloaded our zip file. Boom, ba-da-dum. And as always, we give you everything we need. Now, who wants to tell me the name of this folder right here? It's got a special title. It starts with an S. I've been saying it a couple times. It's like a recording blank. We call it our blank folder. It starts with an S and rhymes with session folder. Awesome. Russ is in the first, Summer is in the second, James for the show. Very good. Who's going to come in next? Anybody come in? All right, very good. Our session folder. So I opened up our session file, and to save time, I went ahead and did our save as we always do. Now, remember our save as, I'm not going to ask you, but I'm just going to remind you, because that way you can make mistakes and then go back here and open up the original and try it again and again and again. And in the real world, we just keep on labeling things as we keep on progressing through our sessions, so we always have a go-to point. Right? So, with that being said, we jump right in. And everything that you see here would normally open up with that, except the MIDI files for import. This is a folder that was specially provided by Full Sail University. So you could import a lead synth. Right? Now, just the other day, I had a synth removed. That's a pun joke. All right, so any questions about our file hierarchy? You might see some of those in our quizzes, but we've got session folders that are going to contain many session files, right? And then we've got everything that we've been accumulating into our audio files folder, and now we're going to learn a little bit more about MIDI. And we're going to, as we always do, especially on our Pro Tools assignment days, we're going to pause for the cause a lot and jump down some rabbit holes of learning, if you will. And tonight we're really going to talk about some how Pro Tools does effects. Now, if I'm remembering, everybody in here has already had a class that has talked about signal flow, right? And you've learned about dynamic effects and time-based effects, correct? Good. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Summer. All right. So I'm going to hit this. I'm going to take some knowledge for granted. So I'm going to show you more about how Pro Tools does things. But by all means, if you've got a question, please ask. Now, Mr. Jeremy Francisco is saying, is it true, Steve? And I'm not sure what you're meaning. Is it true? That you're going to purchase and mail out a synth of the user's choice to whomever produces the best remix for the final projects. You are doing some kind of crazy. That's a wonderful joke. I love that. But Just for that, I will give you another synth joke. Did you know that Bob Moog died for your synths? All right. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So tonight we're going to focus on our mixing aspects of that. So as we said, I already did our save as for number one. So like poof, there it is. I'm taking for granted that everybody knows by now that if you're not naming this right, homeboy Steve or one of your favorite other instructors is going to be taking off some points for not naming it correctly. That's a silly way, right? So number 2 says, select exactly 8 bars of the funk guitar. 8 bars of that funk guitar. And process it 1 semitone higher using the pitch shift command found in the audio suite menu. All right, so automatically I first want to stop. And I want to jump down a little rabbit hole. And we're going to talk about 2 types of effects. All right, so everybody get off Facebook, put your sandwich down a little bit, scoot up a little bit closer, and we're going to talk about effects. All right? There are 2, every effect in the whole wide world is going to fall in one of these 2 type of categories. It is going to be a real-time effect, or it is going to be a rendered effect. And the word rendered means it rewrites the file. Does that make sense? Give me an MS for makes sense. Right? Every effect, I don't care what it is either going to fall in one bucket of being real time or it is going to fall in the bucket of being rendered. Now, Homeboy Steve is going to show you what I'm talking about. So on my live microphone right here, let's get my live mic. 3 fingers down. Push, pow, wow. All right. I have got a real time. So any of these plugins that you're putting on the inserts are real time. And so in real time, you're going to be able to listen to this EQ change as I drag it around. Can you hear this EQ change, right? It's like, oh yeah, thank you very much. Right? Is everybody hearing this EQ change? Tell me EQ in the typing. Remember, somebody's like, darn it, I forgot he likes us to type all the time. Thank you, everybody. All right, so this is a real-time effect because it is processing it in real time. Now, something else kind of cool, that under the window menu, you can look at your system usage and you can see how powerful it is as you're using it, and you can see that already I'm using half of my 8 gigs of memory here, 48% of my 8 gigs just by having that one up. These are my 8 processors, and as you load up and you get a lot of effects going on, you're going to see that. So if I wanted to do something like Lenny Kravitz, right, and I wanted to get like, I want to get away, I want to fly away, right? I don't want to do something like that. Check it out. So I can bypass. This is a big clue that this is a real-time effect, that you've got a bypass button right here, okay? Okay. Now check it out. Under presets, we can save this setting as, and this is where I'm going to tell you a little about a real world. If you will, and you can see that I've done this a couple times here. And so let's say we're working, you know what, tonight we were listening to Oscar Peterson as we come in. So if this was Oscar Peterson, piano, you like the way I spell? Piano mic 2, or whatever you were using. You would hit save, right? Now, then what happens, and let me do a little recording here so you can see it happen in real time. Let's just do a little learning here, right? Oh, of course, remember, no tracks to record on. Sorry. Shift R, here we go. Homeboy Steve wants you to learn about these effects so you can burn them down and render them all around and not use up your processing power in the hour. Alright, now check it out. In this, as I play it back, right, listen. Homeboy Steve wants you to learn about these effects so you can burn them down and render them all around and not use up your processing power. So everybody heard that was happening in real time. But check it out. So when I go on tour, or what happens as let me hit pause. Yes, render means rewrite the files. Yes, it does. So I love talking with this effect on. It makes me sound like I'm talking to a little, like I'm a football coach. Come on, yo, let's get ready to run. Come on, come on. Right? So, when I'm going on tour, or I wanted to ask you, have you ever had the error pop up, boop, CPU error, increase the buffer size, right? And so as we increase the buffer size, right, this is because this is happening and we're using up too many processors. So the way I would clear this up, let's say this was some sort of background track that was on live, and let's say it was a synth or whatever, right? And so to avoid doing this, what I do is I take it off. Everybody say, take it off. So I take off that, and then what I do is I highlight this or any part of this, right? Maybe I just want to do a part of it. And then under Audio Suite is where all of our rendered effects live. Now, what's happening right here is, look at this, look at this. Somebody's like, oh my gosh, it looks like the same effect. Oh my gosh. But looky, looky, looky. It's got this render button at the bottom. So now what I do is I pull up a preset, and we said we were working with Oscar Peterson's piano mic, right? And then I hit render, and watch, it's going to render this part. Now there's a couple little buttons that you want to use. I want to use it in playlist. And then the other thing that you want to make sure is I prefer to leave this on playlist instead of clips list, because what that allows me to do is select inside of a clip where the other one would automatically select the whole clip at once. So I want to use it in playlist, and watch what happens. When it renders it, it's going to rewrite another file. All right, and see how it rewrote it and it put it the name of it behind it, right? And look over here in my clips list. It rewrote it there, right? And then look over in my audio files folder. It rewrote the EQ now. And so now listen to this one. Homeboy Steve wants you to learn about these effects so you can burn them down and render them all around. And let's do that to render them all around right there as well, because that'll be cool and funny. I think that's like right there. And we'll do it right there again. Render. All right, so here we go. Homeboy Steve wants you to learn about these effects so you can burn them down and render them all around and not use up your processing power in the hour. That's what we did. Summer asks, is that how artists change voice in certain sections of the song? Yes. Now, so what happens in a live environment, what happens a lot of times then is effects are also called up by patch changes, much like a synthesizer might have patch 1 is a piano and patch 2 is a this and a patch 3 is a that. Effects have the patch changes as well, so they respond to patch changes as well. So what might happen, Summer, is let's say in the middle of the song, I need it to pop to that effect. What I'll do is I'll send it a patch change, or I'll unmute the effect or something like that, and then turn that effect on and off like that. So there's lots of cool ways to do this. Now, does everybody understand the difference now between real time and render? So what it is asking us to do by Audio Suite, is it asking us to do a real time or a render? Tell me, RT for real time or RE for render? What is it asking us to do, since it's asking us to go to the Audio Suite menu? Russ is in with the render. That's right. All right, so check it out, render, right? Because, and then the big clue, and I'm not meaning to be sarcastic, but the big clue is you got the render button right down here, right? And then we went under the Audio Suite, so see how it says Audio Suite and then render. So that's how you can tell without a doubt, right? So not trying to make you feel bad, right? It's just like falling down. That's when you learn a little bit, right? It's good. I'm glad to see you committed. That's what it's about. You realize how many people didn't answer? That's what I'm talking about. Right? Somebody's like, well, he's just a white belt. And I was like, you know what? There's a lot more people that aren't even white belts, you know? So at least you're out there trying. You know what I'm saying? All right. So let's go do that then. Enough of me. Let's go 1, 2, 3, and let's get rid of that nonsense. All right. So now let's go do what it actually asked us to do. It said this funk guitar. So let's listen to it and see what the problem is. So it doesn't sound terrible, but it asks us to take it up just one semitone, right? And so if I'm thinking if things aren't sounding bad and then they're going to sound even better one semitone apart, usually that's a very clashing tone, right? That minor second, right? Jaws, dun, 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 right? But if it comes down and they're doing like a major 7 and then we lift it up to be the root or something, which I think is kind of what they're going on. So let's do that. So check it out. What Homeboy Steve did, let me ask you, how many times did I click to select that entire funk guitar with my selector tool? How many times? How many times? All right, so if I had multiple clips on there, I would need to click it 3 times. But if I just for one clip, I could do just 2, and it takes 2 to select the clip all right. All right, so you're never going to forget that again. It takes 2 to select the clip all right. It takes 2 to select the clip all right. I'm never going to do that again. Okay, so it said process it with Audio Suite, Pitch, Shift, Baby. Now, you can use either one of these, have fun, look at them. But what we're doing is we're looking to go up 1 semitone, and that is a coarse effect right here. So we're going to go up 1. Now, what would I need to do if I needed to go down 1? We talked about this last time, right? Is I would put the little negative sign in front of it, right? Are you positive? All right, don't forget to hit enter, though. You got to dial it in. All right, so we hit render. We've got the using playlist, and we hit render. Boom. All right, now let's listen to this funky, funky, funky guitar. All right, can everybody hear that? Do you want me to undo it? Let's undo it and listen. See that? And then we go and redo it. So that's what I'm thinking. Is anybody else hearing that? I was thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I was hearing it was like they were hitting like that major 7. That's why it wasn't sounding awful. But then it sounds like right on now that we've lifted it up and it is on the root. Is anybody else hearing that? Or was it because if it was a 3rd and we put it up to a 4th, I'm not hearing it be a 4th. I didn't hear it be I wasn't hearing it being a minor. I wasn't hearing it being a 2nd, right? So if anybody else wants to jump in that and help me with my ears, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was cool both ways, and that's one of the cool things about funk. And if you're down with funk, there's a lot of major 7s and dominant 7s and minor 7s and so just experiment and play with it. But we are going to be looking for that to be exactly like that. Remember, this is a very much a paint by numbers type of assignment. So any questions about that? So see, it's labeled pitches, right? Pitch shift, right? Pitch. And pitches, man, I'm telling you, some of the hardest things in music, right? Tuning guitars can drive you crazy sometimes. All right, so check it out. We've done that. Now, so let's do number 3. So it says from the tracks menu, unhide and activate an audio track name, guitar effects. All right. So we've got a way to do this. We've got guitar effects. Let's just make this a little bit bigger. I'm just clicking and dragging. So we go down here and we've got guitar effects, and see how it's italicized and it's not hidden. That lets me know that it is inactive and that it is hidden, right? So I'm going to show you that you can do this in 1 or 2 steps, and you can decide which way makes you look coolest, right? You can show it first if you want to by clicking the hide button, but it's still inactive. And then you can either right-click here, or you can right-click up here, and you can make it active, right? But check it out. You could do it in I was just about to say you could do it in 1 step by clicking hide or show and make inactive all in one, and I clicked the wrong one instead of guitar effects. But that's the problem with this oversized mouse. I like to teach with the oversized cursor because it makes it easier for you to follow me. But at the same time, though, it makes for clicking a little bit awkward. All right, so we've got guitar effects now, and let's see what this sounds like. All right, that's better. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to send this to the submaster, and the way you can do that is it's already set up as a bus, as you see, and that way I can pull everything down and talk over it. But you hear that guitar effect. So what does it want us to do with it? So we're going to go put some delay on it, right? So using time-based routing, all right? Route this track to the delay. Now, time-based routing. So we've got 2 ways that we're going to route effects, or 2 types of effects, on top of the 2 types that I've just told you about. So now let's jump down another rabbit hole with Homeboy Steve. Remember we said Uncle Steve sounded a little creepy. So to do this, we need to see both our inserts and our sends. Now, you've got 10 of each, and they break them up into 5, A through E or F through J. All right, so I need my inserts and my sends to make this happen. All right, so first for the learning aspect of it. As you see, I don't remember that EQ that I had on here, right? That would be a dynamic effect, right? So we just said earlier in number 2 that effects will either be rendered or real time, and now I'm going to add, and they will either be dynamic or time-based. All right, so let's listen to this. All right, so dynamic effects are all effects are put on the inserts. That's the only place that we can put effects, right? So a time-based effect, like I see how I've got Steve's effects, I blend in, right? So right now, believe it or not, did you hear? I've got reverb on me, but it's just a little bit to boost it, right? And so when I turn it down, now I sound really dry. You're like, holy cow, Steve, now you sound really dry. So I was using it not to be some crazy effect, but just to kind of boost up the frequencies, right? Now, can you hear the difference? Usually people think of time-based effects like these big rooms, like let's do something like a cathedral, right? This is what I'm talking about. And then I just blend it up till it sounds natural. Oh. All right, guys, we got to come in here. Let's put the couches on the other side of that room, and then we'll put those boxes over there, right? And then what we do is we just blend them in. And so this is called my wet track that I'm blending in, right? And this is called my dry track. So I know you've already heard those terms, but I'm just telling you how Pro Tools does that, right? So let's see if we can find anything else. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Homeboy Steve's Talk About Reverbs and Delays. And normally I wouldn't put a delay on that same track. I just do that for fun. However, let's go back to our regular voice now. All right, so that is a time-based effect, and I blend in a wet track with my dry track. Then things like EQs are what we call dynamic effects, right? Because they fool with the dynamics. They might just be the dynamics of a certain frequency, right? Of like an EQ, right? But notice that I put those right on the track. I'm not blending them in, right? Now, another type of dynamic effect you might see are compressors, right? Compressors are real fun. Here's an I said old school compressor, and it got me out here. But you can put a nice big reduction on there and squash it down quite a bit, right? There we go. And now we pick it up, and now I've got my little squashy washy. Look at it, just like I'm viewing gain reduction. It is squashing the cow mess out of it. Whoa, holy moly. All right, so we can get in trouble there. Compressors are crazy. So now, do we all understand then that we can have, like we said, rendered or real-time and dynamic or time-based? And if you look up here in our rendered section, look, dynamics, time-based. Well, that's more of a dynamic. Time-based, right? That's more of a dynamic. So everybody cool with that? It falls, so every effect in the whole wide world falls in two categories. Everybody cool with that? Yep, thank you, Summer. You knew I was going to ask. Man, I needed to start saying something else. You were jumping the gun. Sheldon already done with that. Everybody's like, so maybe I should change it. It seems weird to render a time-based effect. That's a great question, Russ. So when would we want to do that? All right, so if we were mixing an album, I probably would never do that. The times that I would do that are times when I've got just like a delay going on. Like Pink Floyd, you know how they delay that bass and it's like and they make like a triple delay or something, right? So what they might want to do to decrease this processing power over here, they might go ahead and just record that delayed sound and put that into the mix instead of running him through a real-time delay, and that keeps the processing power down on a live show. Does that make sense? Because the tempo of the song isn't going to change on that delay so much like the reverbs would in a room. I probably wouldn't do it to reverbs because that's going to change every room that I'm in. I'm probably going to have a different blend of it. But to have it already there and then just take it and blend it in is one thing. But for delays, does that make sense? Good. Great question. Another type of instance is when we go on tour. Let's not forget about doing the cool little shows, right? Conan and all that kind of stuff, where maybe you've got a background set of singers. I'm going to go back to Pink Floyd. You know, they've got some of the best background singers in the world. but if they were to go on, maybe they couldn't fit them all right there on the stage. So they're going to rely on DAW support, and they would probably have not only the background tracks of the singers, but they would probably have the verb or the delays as well. So another great reason to print that kind of stuff. But in the overall big scheme, the reason why is to lower processing power to keep crashes down and CPUs crashing down. Great questions. So jumping down that rabbit hole, we're down there. So let's set this darn thing up now. So it said bring up that guitar effects, and so using time-based routing, which means we're going to have an aux track to use for this delay. So here it is, this delay track, right? So now we need to send it. I'm going to hit 3 fingers down. I should have asked you what it was. And just so it's easy to watch, I'm going to put this right on, and you can see what's going on. So right now I've got my dry track going to my submaster, and that's all fine and good. And then so my wet track is also going to my submaster, and that's all fine and good. Now, remember, you don't have that at home. I've just got that so I can talk over the music as I need to. So you would be sending them all to whatever your main outputs are. Okay, so now we need to get it over here. So we've got inserts and sends. Now, we showed you earlier that you can get these over in this little drop-down menu here or under the view track, edit window shows, and you've got that going on. I don't need to see my comments right now. So, a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and hide some of these just so I can make some of these a little bit bigger so it's easier to teach. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to send a copy over here, right? And I know that you've learned this in the past. So through other software, right, with Logic, I believe your last class was. And so you can send it out of the system because realistically, you know, if you were working in the 80s and 90s, you probably brought some cool outboard gear. When I turn to my left, I've got a mini Moog that I use the heck out of the filter of. And as an output effect. And so I need to send it out. I'd look whatever is out of my, I'd look in the back of the rack and what output is not used. I'd use that. And then I go into my filter and then I'd bring it right back in. Or if I'm going to stay internally like we're doing, we're going to go to a bus. So it doesn't matter what bus you get. Bus 13 and 14, fine. All right. So what this as I turn this up, it's going to go out bus 13 and 14. So what do I need this input for my aux track? Now, I know it's an aux track because I see my little key down here and see the down arrows, right? Those are aux tracks. The little squiggly lines are audio tracks. Somebody told me one time, they're like, dude, those look like fighter jets, like from a bird's eye view. And I was like, I think you're right, but I've never seen it like that. And then let's see, we've also got a Sigma down here that is for our masters. Oh, look, our submaster that I created, that is just, and we'll talk about this on our mix day, that's just a different, or a same aux track, I just routed it differently, and that's how I use it as a submaster. My effects track, so for time-based routing. MIDI tracks have got a little MIDI pin. And then as we've learned earlier in our remix projects, if it has a little piano key down there, that is our instrument tracks there. So as we're going through here, I just need to route that here. So I need to put that to 13 and 14, right? So for my bus, I need to put that same input to 13 and 14, right? So now what you're going to see is as we play, I'm going to start with it down, and then as I turn it up, you're going to start seeing it appear here. Okay. So, did everybody hear that delay? Everybody hear that delay? All right, if you're having problems hearing this delay, I want to talk to you about our game design degrees here at Full Sail. I'm kidding. I want you to do some ear training. And one of the best ways to do it is what I just did, is by pulling it up. The real world, the way you would usually mix this in, is you would bring it up so you can really hear what you're wanting to focus on, and then you would bring it down into the mix into your usable level, right? So if I was doing this for real, I would do it like this. Or something like that. Does that make sense? Now, so we can grade you, and we know how you do this. We want you to set this exactly to -11. And so you are going to find that doing this might get you there, right? And if it does, you're lucky, right? If you're having problems with that, check this out. See how I'm going to click and hold, and I'm using my trackpad right now, and I'm going to move it as far up and down as I can. Look, without picking my finger up off of my trackpad, I can move it all the way up and down. So, but check this out. If I hold down the command key, it's a fine adjustment. So if you're having problems getting down to -11, just get close and then hold down the command key, and you can get very fine adjustments, and it'll be very easy like that. Or you can just go down here and type in -11. And then bam. Now, remember, it doesn't do the bam sound. You've got to make the bam sound like that. Sounds like Minions. Yeah, it does kind of. Oh, I've never thought about that. All right, so -11, let's see. And then the other thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that this is left at 0. And the reason that I want to leave this at 0, I'm going to tell you a little story so you can learn. One of the first internships I had was one of the coolest guys. His name was Roger Nichols, bless his soul. Worked with KC in the Sunshine Band, did Get Down Tonight and all this kind of stuff. And he knew that I was into mixing, or wanted to be into mixing. And so after he got to trust me after a few weeks and being there, he says, hey, if nobody's in C, you can take one of my safety copies and go do some practice and mixing. And I was like, holy cow, right? So I go in there, and at the time, I'm in my early 20s, and I started mixing, and they have, all the cool gear over there. It was Emerald Entertainment at the time, and, like Vince Gill's in the other room recording and such. And so I'm in there doing my thing, and I'm trying to find, like, the coolest reverb for the kick drum, and, like, the coolest reverb for the snare drum, and the coolest reverb for the whatever, for the overheads and such. And then after I'm working about 30 minutes and such, Roger comes down and he says, son, how many rooms is that drummer in? and I kind of looked at him, and he says, the reason that we use a reverb is to create a room, right? And the kick drum and the snare drum and the overheads are probably going to be in the same room. He's like, how many pieces of outboard gear you think we got here, right? So what he was getting at is that a lot of times when you start mixing, especially on similar instruments like drums, you're going to use similar or the same verb or vocals. You a lot of times send the lead vocals and the background vocals sometimes to the same verb, or the snare drum and the kick drum to the same verb. So this is the reason why, is because now, check it out, on different tracks, I can send different levels. Even though they're returning at 0, I could have a different level here, and then let's pretend I had one up here on my funk guitar. I could have a different level there, and we'll do that a little bit later on tonight. But anyway, so we want this at -11, and we want our returns at 0. Any questions about why we generally want our time-based returns, our wet tracks, at 0, and we do this with our mixing via our sends? All right? Any questions about that? All right? So, we jumped down 2 big rabbit holes, and I think now we're going to be able to come up from air and move a little quicker here. And so will it make a difference if I type -11 or -11.0? I wanted to answer you sarcastically, and I just cannot bring myself to it. It is not going to make any difference at all. I had some really clever answers, but I just could not bring myself to do it. But yes, great question. What makes the biggest difference, though, Summer, is if you hit return afterwards or not. That's what's going to make a big difference, because check this out. A lot of people will do this. They'll type in, I'm just going to change the number, but they won't hit return, right? And it's when I move, look, and I click over here, it went back to negative 11. And you see? I see the problem. So I got to hit return after that. All right. So great question, Summer. Thank you for asking. And thank you for not thinking I was being a meanie for saying I had a sarcastic comment. That's just some things you just gotta overcome. At least I didn't say it. I make the mistake in the beginning before. Yeah. Yep. All right. So let's go ahead and get our tracks and unhide the aux track named verb, and then we're going to route that funk guitar to it. So now check this out. Let me ask you, by looking at verb, can you tell if it is inactive or active? Give me an I or an A. I want you to be able to tell by looking. The key is in the font. Sheldon says it's active. John says it's inactive. Summer says it's inactive. Shantae says it's active. Tyrone says it's active. Ray says active. Active. All right, inactive. All right, so what if it was italicized, right? So check it out. So I right-click on it. Look, make inactive. So inactive, they're italicized. When they're regular font, they're regular. All right? So my actives had it. If you answered active, I will give you a congratulations right now. Congratulations! Hold it. Wait a minute. Congratulations! See, that was much better, right? Delays make everything better. Summer's like, I knew that was coming. Silly guy. Oh. All right, so let's get this thing. Let's route this funky guitar over to this reverb. All right, now before we get crazy here, I don't want to leave this like bus 13 and 14 and then all this other stuff, because guess who's going to get confused later on? Me. That's right. So we're going to right-click, and we are going to rename this. Rename it. We're going to rename it delay. That's the one that was. And now I'm going to show you a shortcut, right? Check this out. Because our verb, three fingers down. Let's move this up underneath our funky guitar. Now, because this has no input, check it out. Are you watching? All right, if I got delays on A, maybe I should put my reverbs on B, and I can keep them separated. Check it out. Under track, because it has no input, it is right there, and watch what happens. I'm going to do the whoop sound right there. Look at that. Would you look at it? What? Look at this. It named it automatically. Holy guacamole. And look at what it did. Would you look at it? Just look at it. Look, it's really a bus. And it just named it. Holy moly. Homeboy Steve just showed you how to save time. Look at that. You don't have to actually go bus and then rename them anymore. You can just go boop like that. And now it says to set that at negative 11. So check it out, Summer. Negative 11.0. Return. You like it? And then my verb at 0 as well. So now let's see if we can hear a difference. Oh, yeah. Let's pump it up a little bit. Can everybody hear that verb? Can everybody hear that verb? Yeah. If you can't hear this verb, I want to talk to you about our... That joke just never gets old, does it? All right, so we're going to hit negative 11, boom, and then it pops up. All right, so... we got a whole lot of learning right there in those first couple of minutes. We're going to be able to fly through a couple of these now. All right, so any questions about time-based routing in Pro Tools? I know you've done it in other classes. I know you've done it with other software, but this is how Pro Tools does it. This is how we do it, baby. All right? Everybody ready? Any questions? You can give me an NQ for no questions. All right. I've got one for you then. Does anybody know Forrest Gump's password? Well, that would be 1 Forrest 1. Ha ha! Ah, lordy, lordy. All right, from the tracks menu, here we go. Import the MIDI file named lead synth and from the MIDI import files folder and place it in the MIDI track named lead synth. All right, so here we go. So now if you've already memorized Shift Command I, it's going to bite you in the behind because unlike Keynote and some of those others, it's not just one quick key to import anything you want. You've got to tell Pro Tools exactly what you want to import. So get MIDI. And then when you go import MIDI, you're going to go to where you have saved this. So we are in section 1, week 3, which is just a fun way to say 3. And look at that, MIDI files for the import. MIDI.mid right there. MIDKEYMOUGZ. All right, so check it out. A new track versus a clip. I have told you in the past why I would choose clip versus new track. Now you tell me why I would choose track or new clip. This versus that. I love the honesty. Anybody. All right, so check it out. If you've got pretty much a whole track of music, like it's the entire bass part, go ahead and make it a new track. But if it's just like a snare sample or a sample of Michael going, I'm not going to do that again. I would just throw it over in the clips list because I'm not sure where I want to use it in the track. Does that make sense? So it's usually like that's your deciding factor. Is this like an entire musical line or is it just like a quick little sample? All right. Samples usually you throw in the clips list. Or if I've already got a track named for it, like over here, lead synth. Right. But if I didn't have that one, I would probably click lead track. But it told me to go over to the clips list and then place it on the MIDI track. So I already got a MIDI track. So why would I make a MIDI track? You know what I'm saying? I already got one. So hit OK. Bam. And there you see MIDI o uno, right? Which is just Spanish for one. All right. So now lead synth, I'm going to hit this over here. I'm going to click that. I'm going to hit 3 fingers and down. Wakachui. Yeah, like that. Boom, lead synth. And now I'm going to drag it out there. Now, does it matter? Does the mode matter when I drag this out there? Just give me a Y or an N. Yes or no? Does the mode make a difference of where that audio clip is going to end up? Sheldon is right there. Woo, woo, woo. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Because if I was in old Gridley mode, right, it's going to jump around. Look at this. Watch how it jumps around in Gridley mode. Boom, ba-doom, doom, doom. Now, I'm in a really small grid right now. That's why it looks like it's moving smooth. Let's make it like a full bar. I love full bars. I should have put the delay on. That makes laughter easy. All right, so see how it's jumping around, right, in grid mode? But in slip mode, I can slip it anywhere I want. Look at me using grandma mode, going up there and actually touching it. Or what I like, when I'm editing, I like to leave myself in grid mode. So option 4. Or, let's see, I'm trying to think of another language. Right? We could do option 4. And then check it out to get to spot mode. Watch this. This is really fun. This is so much fun. It's as fun as saying Francisco. I right click and I go down here in one time spot. Boom. Just like that. Measure uno. Bam. Bam. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-bum. Beep. Do y'all know what movie that came from? Francisco. It's my favorite word to say. I'll give you a hint. It's a Christmas movie. Yes! Yes! Good, good. At least people aren't saying, this dude is weird. Why is he saying stuff like that? Dude, if I was him, I'd be mad. All right, good. At least everybody knows it was from Elf. All right, so now I've got this synth here. And as we've talked about it before, when we see things grayed out, are those usually good? You're thinking, this dude is weird, and is that really water that is going? Dude, if I was drinking vodka, there'd be no way I could be talking this fast and this crisp of a voice if I was drinking on a job, you know what I'm saying? All right, so what other kind of track do I need? You've already been in sequencing. If this is MIDI and all I've got are MIDI outputs to go to, there's no way I can hear this unless I have what kind of track, right? I'll give you a hint. It starts with an A. Very good, Sheldon. Very good. Aux track. Aux track. Remember? Aux track. Sounds, it's kind of like option. It sounds best with Sean Connery's accent there. Well, I got my aux track. So what we got here is an expand aux track, right? So actually, before we do this, hey, look. We've already done that. Whoa! We're halfway there. Now everybody else. Because I'm not going up that high. I cannot go up that high. We'll go, whoa, living on a prayer. Let's bring it down an octave. All right, number 6. From the tracks menu, unhide the aux tracks names, expand. Sheldon was so awesome at telling us, Summer and Tyrone James, and did anybody else say aux track? Yeah. All right, so telling me that I needed an aux track, and we've already got one for you, of course, because we're Full Sail University, and we provide aux tracks with virtual instruments available for you to put expand on them. All right, so let's go do this. Let's go put this aux track on there, expand, boom. Let's go put expand on there, 3 fingers down. Let's fill this bad boy up. Now, when I'm working with instruments, I prefer to put them right on the first insert because that allows you to put some cool effects on them afterwards. So we got this effects, expand 2 is the name of the instrument. And now that it is here, it is able to be routed to there. See? You see? I got that. Channel 1, I got channel 1, you see? And all line up, you see? I'm sending on channel 1, I'm receiving on channel 1. It's all good, you see? All right, so now, sorry, I don't know where that came from. Who's the name of that actor? I forget. Is that Cagney? Are you see? That's what I'm talking about. Forget. But anyway, check it out. They want us to also now put the expand on that, and now we got to route it there. We did that, and now let's go put an actual sound on it because it just has like this default preset. Now, I'm just going to tell you a little bit something about personal me. This word toothache hits hard with me. You know how they say, like, you know, if you got bad feet, you're, born to a shoemaker or whatever. I was born to a dentist, right? I'm like truly like Willy Wonka, right? I love candy. My dad was a dentist. He'd never let me have candy, and the tough part about being this is I never had a toothache because he'd say, "Oh, we're gonna have it. It doesn't even hurt," and I'm like, "Why do I gotta have dental work? I'm not even in any pain." So, oh gosh, sorry, I'm digressing. But anyway, check it out. Let's go name this preset. Let's get this preset going on. And when you do this, you're going to notice that when they are grouped up here, and you go up into your hard synths, hard leads, that you got pluses and then you've got non-pluses, right? So it does make a difference where you are. So you'll see la toothache, which is just French for the toothache. And now let's see what this bad boy sounds like. So what we should do now, because we've routed it, so we should see the MIDI notes playing here, but we're actually going to see that the expand is making the audio. And audio it is making. Some people are saying, now I understand why he was asking about candy tonight. All right, so we've got that. Any questions about that routing right there. MIDI going to my, now granted, this is old school. What would I do instead of this? And I know I talked about this. I said 1 + 2 = 3. I said MIDI, or I said peanut butter plus jelly equals peanut butter jelly. And then I said MIDI plus aux equals instrument. Very good. Very good. Instrument track. Russ is in there for first. Anybody coming in for a second? Or they're like, dude, I don't know. I'm just going to sit this one out. Instrument. There you go. All right. Well, check it out. Let me show you. Because let's pause then. Let's pause the project. And we're going to dive in for a little bit of learning. Because like I said, I mean, we're almost done. And it's 7 o'clock. So we're doing fine. Let's get ourselves a quick little instrument track. All right. So I'm going to make it stereo. By the way, I did Shift Command N for new track. And then I did Command sideways to get stereo. And now I'm doing Command down to do instrument. And I'm going to show you what the deal is, yo. Because I'm just that kind of guy. All right. So here's what I was telling everybody. And let's go ahead. I'm going to take these off. And so I can make these really nice and big. All right. So MIDI tracks by themselves have no inserts and sends, because how can you put an insert and compress a MIDI note or EQ a MIDI note, right? That makes sense, right? All right, and I can't really send MIDI notes to other places. It would be cool, you know. Well, I can, but we'll talk about that later. So by default, when Pro Tools made MIDI, and this is kind of a history track too, because that was a great question. Or, you know, to get into this. When Pro Tools started, it was audio only, right? So MIDI was a secondary thought to it, and so it didn't have all the kinks worked out yet. And so when it first came up with MIDI, it had no inserts and no sends, because they're thinking, how can we compress, how can we EQ MIDI? We can't. So what we're going to do is we're going to team it up with an aux track. And what we'll do is we'll put a plug-in on the aux track, because aux tracks, we've been doing that a while, right? Reverbs and delays and stuff. So what we'll do is we'll put now these new things called virtual instruments on the inserts, right? Just like you would a reverb or whatever. And so now what I can do is route my MIDI notes to that virtual instrument, right? So that's our first little spot, right? And then because it's an aux track over here, we've got the ability to use audio outputs, right? You're not seeing the MIDI type of routings that you saw over here, right? So through an aux track has exactly the same properties as an audio track minus the ability to record. All right, so that's a cool little that's a fun fact for you. All right, so what we did then is they took the best of both worlds, and when you look at the instrument column, they took the MIDI routing of a MIDI track and they put it in the instrument column. Then they took the aux qualities and left them in the insert and sends in the IOs. So that's why I say a MIDI track plus an aux track equals an instrument track, because it has the qualities. It's got the MIDI qualities. Oh, and look, over here, it's recording MIDI data. See, I can put this down here as well. It's MIDI data. So it's got that quality of the MIDI track, that it's MIDI quality, and I can route to it. Check it out. I can even route back up there. Or if I brought it back down here, it automatically will route to it. Right? So, does that answer the question? Is that did that solve some of that fogginess there? You're very, very welcome. Anybody else got questions while we're pausing for the causing? So, and what happens, and just to finish this out a little bit, Russ, is later on in the early 2000s, after everybody started having MIDI and audio tracks. Because what happened back in the day, like Pro Tools had audio tracks, and people like Performer had MIDI tracks. And then in about in the year 2000, people started getting a little bit of both. And Performer started bringing in audio tracks, but they kind of didn't do them as well as they've been doing MIDI. And Pro Tools started bringing on MIDI tracks, but they weren't doing them as good as they had done audio. So people would still work in this dual environment and work a lot with MIDI sequencers and digital audio workstations. And then as computer processors started getting really fast, like in like 2006 and such, you started really seeing Pro Tools step up and Digital Performer step up, and everybody started doing everything really good, honestly. And that's when instrument tracks came about, when this explosion of instruments came about. So just it kind of comes from a history thing. We're good. All right. So Summer's telling me you're good. All right. So awesome. All right. So I'm just gonna hide this. Now you know what? I'm gonna show you something, and it's just because I love you. Let me show you something, and I'm gonna prep it with a story. Has anybody worked retail or in a kitchen or anything like that, where back in the day they felt like on your first day that they were gonna like do a little cool initiation and like, hey, can you go around the mall and ask if anybody's got any left-handed hangers? Or if you were in the kitchen, they might say like, hey, can you go around the food court and see if anybody's got any left-handed chopping stick, whatever. So in the studio world, what they're going to say is, hey, you don't need that instrument track anymore. Do you mind deleting that for me? And check out what happens. And this is why Homeboy Steve is your hero. Remember this drunk uncle window I talked about the other night? Watch what happens when I delete a track instead of simply hiding it and making it active. If I go down and I actually delete that track, watch. Boom. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Somebody can't undo anything anymore. That's not any good. So if you ever need to do that, just hide them and make them inactive, because you can't even. All right. Any more questions while we're here? So we got that expand track. We got our, oh, no, I deleted that track and then I took the plug-in with it. You bonehead. Way to go, you bonehead. All right, we're back in business. But check it out. I want to show you, look at this. Notice how, all right, so we got to expand. Let's just make sure it's going to the right one. Because it said it, it just didn't look like it. All right, so now we got that. All right, I'm down with that. All right, so we got that going on. Toothache, please. All right, be sure to name the track before recording. All right, so set the virtual instrument toothache. All right, so it wants us to record a MIDI lead synth, a new stereo audio track for exactly 9 bars, and then it says be sure to name the track before recording it, and then to name it synth. All right, so let's go grab a new track. So remember all that shift command in stuff, right, under track. Right, that's the grandma way. So it said stereo, so command sideways stereo or the grandma way, right? So got my audio track, hit create, boom, which is just return, and it said name it synth before there, so I just double click, name it synth. Right, it said synth, right? Whoops. Yep, synth. All right, so now here's the cool thing. When I say, or when it says, exactly 9 bars, do you think I'm going to count this wrong if it's a little bit over or a little bit under? Heck yes, I am. Because when Quincy Jones says to me, Steve, I need exactly this, homeboy Steve, then he wants exactly that. It's either exactly right or exactly wrong. All right, so I'm pausing for just a quick second because I'm looking back up on my chat window when I was looking for that, and I had some questions and conversations, And Russ said, "Wow, bummer. Why would they do that?" And I forgot what I was talking about when you mentioned that comment, and I don't want to go without talking about that comment. So sorry I didn't see it on that other screen when I was working. Why would they do instrument tracks? Was it differently, or why would Abbott erase the undo history? Oh, that's a great question. You know, I am really knowledgeable in a lot of things. That is one thing that I can't figure out. Now, here's the one thing I think it derives from is back in the day. And Russ, I'm not sure how old you are. I'm in my mid 40s, and so I'm in that generation that had analog recording in the 1900s when I was actually making my way up the ranks there, and then got switched into the digital world. So I was just kind of in that right place at the right time as Pro Tools came around and studios were getting into it. And so being there from the beginning, if you're an older guy like me, you might remember the days of there only being one level of undo. If you're a younger guy, you might be thinking, one level of undo? What in the world? What? Right? But I think, if I had to guess, I think that's what it comes from, is only having one level of undo, because the little bit I know about computer programming is as they make new versions, they just kind of add code on, like strapping on when you make a tape ball, right? You don't ever go add from the inside because that'd be too much work to unwrap the whole ball and then add a bigger core. You just keep wrapping around from the outside. And so I think it has something to do with that, about erasing that undo history. Now, if you're talking about why would somebody tell you to do that, that's just because they're a butthead. So, James, I'm old, but not that old. But I have seen some cool concerts. I have seen Pink Floyd, and I have seen Metallica Black. All right, but now, let's get back to this. So, I was saying, if I get anything but exactly 8 bars, and you can just type in 8 bars. No, sorry, it said 9 bars, didn't it? If you get anything except 9 bars, homeboy Steve is going to mark you wrong, right? Because it is going to be very, very hard. And check this out. When I make this track red, holy cow, it came in from my microphone. So I would be recording myself. Look at that. Somebody's like, how come it's only coming in on 1 meter? It's because it's hard for me to talk in stereo. I'm just going to let that settle in for a second. It's an engineering joke. All right. So what we're going to do then is, instead of sending this expand track to the submaster, who wants to send it down here? No way. Can we do that? Yes, we can do that. We're just going to ride the bus, right? What bus are we going to ride? I don't know. Somebody tell your favorite numbers. Somebody shout out some numbers. Quick. 13. All right, 13. Love that number. Oh, sorry. We've already used that for our delay. So 18 is the next one. Boom. So 17 and 18. So watch what happens when I turn this input to 17 and 18. So I go to bus, 17 and 18. Bam. All right. So now, look, no longer do you have my ugly voice in here. Now, here's what's going to happen. There's going to be some people that don't watch this archive, and they're going to do this step wrong, and they're going to have a flat line here because this happened. They're going to try this out. They're going to do this. They're going to hit play, and nothing's going to happen until they hit stop. And they're going to see it, and they're like, I don't hear it. But wait, when I hit stop, I hear one little blip. Did you hear that? All right? You heard it here first, right? So this is how I know when people watch the video or not, or when I get these flat lines. Because if they just go try to record this, I'm just going to hit 3. Because I've got this selection, it's going to auto punch. Now this is fooling me now because I'm in auto monitoring, so I'm hearing something. All right, it got me. right? Check it out. It's there. And I should have, look at how low that is. Check it out. Let's pop this back up to a 0, and let's bring this down so it doesn't do that. And let's get that one more time. I'm going to get that one more time. So I have always hit the I button to get that. And then when we click on it, we see it's exactly 9 bars. And then you can take it out of record. Awesome, huh? Oh, yeah. That's a little bit loud. Nice. Nice. All right. Look, man, we're getting closer and closer on the newly recorded lead synth audio track. Insert the modulation plugin called Filter Gatte. We've learned about Filter Gatte. And then change the preset to the envelope follower. Filter Gatte. You're not going to do it again. Or did we decide that Filter Gatte was going to be a new character in Sling Blade? Filter Gatte, I'm going to get you. You're not going to modulate that much longer, Filter Gatte. I'll tell you what. I'm going to take it like that. I'm going to put you on here, Filter Gatte, and we're going to put that envelope follower like that on you like that. Ooh, that sounds kind of groovy. Now check it out. It's got this little mixy poo knob, and it says put that mixy new knob to the big 5-0. You know what I'm saying? Check it out, check it out, check it out. Uh-oh. So I can simply type in there. Come on, come on, come on. 5-0. Return O. Oh, that was nice. Look at that. Exactly 9 bars. 9 bars. Did you know, by the way, what sound their name in there to make it feel good? Yes. Yes. Look at this. I've got Mr. Coleman in here. And by the way, Mr. Coleman was the first one with the number to pick 58. And so he gets to answer the next question. But he says, is there really a preset in there to put their name in there to make them feel good? Yes. I was teaching one day, and I brought this point up because I told them that I would normally name it the client's name, and I would put their name in there to make them feel good. Because they're like, oh my gosh, nobody's ever done that for me before. And then they call me back, right? One of my biggest clients is the lady that announces for the Grammys and the Oscars. Actually, she's the first lady that announces for all the shows. She's the one that's like making their way to the stage, 3-time Grammy winner, Oscar Peterson, or Randy Thomas is her name, and she's got a remarkable voice and expensive microphones, and nobody had ever just set a preset that said Randy's U47. Randy's, I forget what the other one was. The U47 was the one I was like, oh my God, I want that mic so bad. It was a 414, Randy's 414. And so when I put it in there, she got a preset, and then when she started a new session every month, she's like, oh, that is so much easier than what I used to have to do. And guess who she called every time after that? Well, it was Rob. So that's the reason that is there. It just makes them feel good, and especially because, folks, not everybody that you work with is going to be a techie person, right? And so there are some producers that I worked with in Nashville that were flipping awesome engineers, right? There were some in there that were like dude, are you really a producer? And they're like, well, my daddy said I could be, and you could tell that they couldn't work their way around a console. And so, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. I mean, if you can produce something awesome, if you can know the right engineer to work with the right musicians and you can do that, that's not a bad deal. But what I'm saying is that that some of your clients, you might need to baby step them and not just tell them, well, put it on preset whatever and turn down the hold to whatever and the mix to whatever. You might just need to do it for them and save it as a preset, and do your thing for them and whatever and whatever, and then save it as a preset and then write their name on it. Like Randy's U47, Randy's 414, and then whenever she popped it up, boom, it was easy to go. And then in the real world too, and I'm going to go into story time for a second because we still have a lot of time, but just to drag this out, well, not to drag this out, to drive this home. In the real world, you've got session players, and so even though you might work with 3 different recording artists in Nashville in 2 weeks, you might work with the same drummer on all 3 of those artists, and that drummer might bring the same drum out 2 out of those 3 sessions, right? So if you've already EQ'd that drum once, why not save it as a preset with their name, like John Rickens snare, but John Rickens piccolo snare. Or something like that, and that way you're ready to roll because the sound of the drum isn't going to change, right? They're hiring them for that sound, right? So presets are not a bad thing. I just wanted to make that assumption, go away that presets are bad because people use them all the time. It's a matter of how you use them, though, right? All right, so we've got that synth recorded. Any other questions while we're on the question train? Oh, all right. Yes, you have another question? Or yes, you're good? It's cool. If it's off topic, we're fine with that. We're running great. We've got a lot of time, so lay it on me, man. I'll sing some on the MIDI routing app. All right, so that's going to be audio MIDI setup, right? And you're going to find that in the Finder under Applications. Let's get out of Grandma View here. Under Utilities in Audio MIDI Setup. Now, I use it so much, I pop it here, all right? Now, I launch it, and that tells me everything that's hooked up MIDI-wise and everything that's going on audio-wise. Oh, you don't get why we need it. Okay, so check it out. So the way the computers are working, and I'll make this as quick and painless as possible. In the old days, you couldn't share outputs. Like Pro Tools couldn't use your built-in microphone and then something else use your built-in microphone. And so what happened is as computers got more complicated, they made an automatic audio and MIDI routing setup for you, a setup tool, so you could see exactly what peripherals you were. And by peripherals, I mean just outer things, because just like people would hook up a printer, people would hook up an outboard MIDI interface or a MIDI keyboard or an audio interface or something like that. So they wanted to give you a way to be able to work with this and set the parameters. Now, this totally governs what Pro Tools is seeing. For instance, let's just make this up, and this is why it has to be so precise. I'm going to make this up, and let's pretend we've got, like in our lab room, we've got over at Full Sail, we have got a Korg Triton. And it's the rack module. All right? And that, realistically, is hooked up in the Pro 40 interface. And it's handshaked. And so it goes out to in and out to in. All right? Now, check it out. I don't really have this here. So it doesn't do me any good to put it there because I'm falsifying the system. So what this has to do is this has to be an exact mirror of what you've got going on. Because if I do this, dude, it's getting somewhere where it's never going to go, right? Look at this. If I send it to the Triton rack, it's disappeared. It's gone. But if I send it back to that... I forgot I changed the output of it. So it totally gives me a way to tell my computer what is hooked up to it and how it is connected, whether it's through MIDI. Now, you got to decide whether it's USB or FireWire or Thunderbolt, but those are the MIDI connections. And so it is there to give professional software the realistic things of what you've got connected. Now that I've, it shows all of my inputs of my Pro 40 and that kind of stuff. So I hope that answers the question. So does that, Russ, does that answer your question of why you need it? And now let me read your next question. So my Pro Tools finds my MIDI device without that. That's because it's USB. Now, right? So because is that your Pro Tools interface is USB, I'm assuming, right? Right? Or even if it was, well, no, probably more so USB, because they've got this auto compliant thing, right? That whatever USB is, it automatically knows. That's part of the computer world. It's part of the language, right? If you've got a USB printer and you plug it in, it's automatically going to know what kind of printer you've got. Now, I would bet you that when you look in your audio MIDI setup that you see that interface, don't you? And so what happens then is, in your case, when you're only using something USB, you're right, you don't have to do that. But when we were setting up the tour for Mary J. Blige, right, this was the case. So we had, let's see if this will let me pop up. Opcode. Yep, an opcode. No, let's see if it gives me Mark of the Unicorn. Okay, darn it, it's not giving me something I want with multiple ins and outs. Oh, wait a minute. All right, think back. See, this is where having knowledge of old gear comes in. Not Rocktron, although that was a cool stomp box one. A Roland 5080. A Roland 5080 has multiple ins and outs. XV 5080. Ah, you darn it. All right. So, there we go. So, they would have a master keyboard, right? And then what would happen is we would have 3 slave devices, and I'm not going to name these out. But this 5080 would be their master keyboard, and they would go in to out. Come on. Out to in. Come on. I'm loving how I'm trying to do these on the fly and it's working. All right. So since this isn't going the way I want it, let's change it, because that's actually a slave device. Let's do a Roland A88 or an A80. All right. And then that had 2 MIDI ins and 2 MIDI outs. All right. Now, MIDI out, to MIDI in. Is it not going anywhere? None of my outs or ins are working. Isn't this just being fun? All right, well, anyway, this is how we set it up. And so they were rolling 880, and they had 3 slave devices, right? And so I set it up like this, and now look what happens. Now in Pro Tools, well, let's connect them. Let's connect them. Why isn't it not letting me connect these at all? Out to in. There we go. It was, all right, out to in. It was acting funky with that, okay? And let's go out to in over here. Come on. Out to in. Out to in. There we go. Persnickety little sons of a guns. So we're just going to call this, and here's what I would really do in the real world. I would add somebody's name to it, so I'd put like Ronnie's 5080, and if this was somebody else, and they were playing because I got a good deal on 5080s, this was Jen A's 5080. Jen A, play that 5080. And now I have to do that in order to be able to send that. So it's kind of like, Russ, think about that as kind of like console tape, you know, except like you couldn't plug anything in until you labeled the console tape, you know. So that's what made it possible. I didn't have those choices a minute ago. So as I build something without USB, right, which a lot of people do. I mean, think about if Prince went on tour, man, he's not going to leave all those 5080s and stuff like that around. They're going to use all that old rolling gear and that kind of stuff. All right. So great question. Ray says, what interface would I suggest for traveling purposes? The Scarlett I've got in my lunchbox is just too big to travel with. Okay, so did you get the full rack version size of the Scarlett, or is yours like a half rack space? Because there are some Scarletts that are like a half rack space, and if that's too big, all right. So they do make another one called the 2i4, which is really cool. I've got an audio box that's kind of cool. Now, the other thing that I'll mention, just since we're talking, is that sometimes people find it cooler to have several small interfaces that have different types of preamps than one interface that has a lot of preamps, because then you can mix and match microphones with different preamps, because different preamps have different sounds and such. And so, for instance, I've got a little the PreSonus guy over here for the audio box, for the Pro 40. And then the audio box with different ones, and I've got the Motu with different ones. So the UA Apollo Dual is kicking, but probably not the portable thing. I would not be using that for traveling. But it is really cool and powerful. All right, so let's jump on here and let's finish this things up. All right, so let's see. We got this thing going. Awesome. All right, so lastly, all right, so we're on the last one. Did we set that filter knob to 50 on that filter Gate? Nope. Come on, type in 50. 50 cent. 50%. There we go. There we go. All right, so now on the claps track, what we're going to do is we're going to go send that to the delay as well, but we're going to see that it's just like way too much delay. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw some automation on there so that only the last 3 claps do it. All right? Put it at 50. Put it right there at 50. So let's get our claps track back up here, and let's see some of that and that and that. Good. 3 fingers down. All right, so clap track. So this time I want to send, and check it out, since I've already got my delay up here, All I got to do is go down here, send that to the delay. And then they want us to automate that. Because, see, listen if it's all the way up. Actually, that's the wrong one. Because I'm not hearing anything on that. See, that's when you got to trust your ears and you're like, dude, are you sure that's going right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go track delay. Set that up. All right, so now. So what they want us to do is they want us to automate that so only the last 3 claps get it. All right? Right, cool with that? So check it out. Now that we've put that on there, look at this. Instead of looking at the waveform, I've got all the things about that send. So I'm looking at the level. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down. All you ever do is bring me down. There's my last 3 claps right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it 1 point there to hold it. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I better not be in slip mode because see that was good. So undo. Oh boy. So slip mode. And that way, saying right before the last 3, I put my point right there. And then I put another point right there. And I just go like that. And now let's listen what we got. Oh, listen to the clap. It's got no delay on it. Just one clap, 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 clap. But listen to these last 3. Oh, yeah. I remember slip mode because I can slip it anywhere I want. I can slip it over here. I can slip it over there. And that's it, folks. That is our top 10 things of what we're going to do tonight. Please, let's go to the next page and review how we turn this in and deliver our session properly. All right, so tell me the real-world reason that I told you we use save, copy, in. Who's out there knows that? Who's out there knows that? That's I don't knows that. Who knows that? Who knows that? The real reason we do save, copy, in at the end of the night is so we have to charge for an archive. I love it, Ray. To have a backup, yes, to have a backup. And just homeboy Steve was telling you the business side of it is, yes, you charge $10 for a backup fee, and that way you eventually get your hard drive paid for, right? Nothing wrong with that, right? Because when we would do sessions, you know, how many reels of tape do I got to buy, right? And I go, buy tape with it and put it on their bill, right? So what's the difference, right? So let's go save, copy, in. Let's name it correctly so we don't lose our points. We don't want to lose our points. Come on now. File, save, copy, in. Now, generally, you would go navigate to, after you hit the audio files folder, because you got to hit audio files, right? You're going to leave this whatever it is, and you hit OK. You would navigate this to a different hard drive, right? You're going to take the words copy of off of there so homeboy Steve or any of my other homeboys don't take off points because we need it exactly like we want it. Like we want it. Desktop. Save. Boom. And it's going to save. So now we go do one last step, right? Look at our desktop. Look at Steve Kane, PTA3. Look at this. I'm going to right-click on it. All right, by the way, check this out. This is how I know if you've done save, copy, in properly. Because some of you just give me the whole darn thing again. And I'm going to start taking points off for that if you're not doing save, copy, in. Save, copy, in for me. All right, so now look. I right-click, and I compress it. And now I've got that zip folder, right? And so we're just going to go ahead and get that delay right there. Oh, look, it's even hiding. It's hiding. It's like you're going to use me because you're going over the rubric. Of course I am. I'm going over the rubric. I'm going to use it. So save, copy, in goes, right? And then, so you get that audio files button. You hit that, and then once you archived it, make sure you zip it. And this is what you're going to upload by the due date. All right, so a couple things. Look at this in bold. If the assignment is submitted without the audio files, it is going to be incomplete, and you will receive a 0. 0. Everybody cool with that? All right. So we named our folder. Don't be that person that leaves copy of. I'm so tired of taking off points for that. All right. We did a rendered effect in the audio suites menu. Then we did a time-based effect. We did a couple time-based effects, matter of fact. Then we imported a MIDI clip. We put it on the track. We set the expand up properly. We recorded 9 bars exactly. The synth track in the clip is named appropriately. Filter Gate got set to the envelope follower with the mix knob set to about 50%. And the delay was automated, so the last 3 claps. And we left that automation in view. And if you would do that, you will get a 100! And if not, we're going to count it off. All right? So, any questions for me? Anybody about this assignment? Pretty straightforward. And remember our expectations. I don't expect you to I totally understand now. Pro Tools does all this now. I expect you to go watch this again, play with it a couple times, and then apply these concepts as we start mixing next week. What is my system usage window for? This is a total troubleshooting window. And actually, you know what? I'm going to end the archive and we'll stick around and we'll talk about that. All right, so if anybody doesn't have any questions about this archive, I'm going to wrap this up, and then we will spend some time with the lovely live audience. So I want to thank Gabriel, James, Jeremy, John, Joseph, Heimer, Schmidt, Ray, Russ, Sergio, Shante, Sheldon, Summer, and Tyrone. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm Steve Kane, as always, for the Peace... for the World Audio's Work. I just totally messed that up. Man. All right, we're going to take that one again. And as always, I'm Steve Kane for the Audio Workstations class. Peace out.